Hey, I'm James from Smoke North Barbecue, and you join me for my first ever brisket cook on an offset smoker. All right, let me fill you in on the game plan for today's brisket. While I've done, I think 6 or 7 briskets at this point year to date, I've never done one yet on my offset or any offset for that matter. And so we're pulling from our experience from different smokers and trying to figure out what will translate well and maybe what's not going to translate so well, and it'll be a learning for next time. But let me lay out the plan and we'll see how it all comes together. So like always, starting with what I know has been working awesome for me is starting our cook yesterday. And so when I brought this 15-pound Packer brisket home from the butcher, the first thing I wanted to do is give it a quick trim. So removing our fat cap down to about 1/4 inch is the ideal thickness for my fat cap, removing any of those scraggly bits that were just going to burn up in the smoker and not turn out really good in terms of anything that we want to be able to eat. So after I gave it a quick trim, the next thing I wanted to do is hit it with our salt and pepper garlic Texas style overnight dry brine rub. If you haven't seen my rub ratios, I'll put a little chapter at the end. You can see how that all came together. And if you're already familiar with that, you just use the chapter function to skip, so you don't have to see the same thing, over again. The only difference to that rub is I've added a teaspoon or 2 of smoked paprika just to help give it a little bit more red and mahogany color to the rub than what I would normally use, but everything else remains exactly the same. If you haven't seen it before, my favorite Texas style dry brine rub is mostly a bit of pepper, some salt, with that salt content actually split between 2, evenly between Diamond Crystal Kosher salt as well as Lowry's, and then add a little bit of garlic at the end for some good measure. But this in some cooks is just on the borderline of being a little bit too much salt, which is what I'm getting from the Lowry. So instead of doing 2 tablespoons of black pepper, a tablespoon of Diamond Crystal Kosher salt, and a tablespoon of Lowry's, we're going to break the tablespoons in the salt down into teaspoons. So 1 tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. So what I'm going to do is do 2 teaspoons of Lowry's and 4 teaspoons of Diamond Crystal Kosher salt, as that will help just reduce the saltiness a little bit while keeping some of those great flavors. The other thing that has made a huge difference is using something like this fresh cracked black pepper versus the pre-cracked stuff here that I'm using from Costco. The only problem with this is it's really slow, especially when we need something like 4 tablespoons. So I went and I finally got myself one of these. Let me show you the difference it makes. So even though I know the fresh stuff always tastes better than the pre-ground, when you need something like 4 tablespoons, getting enough pepper out of a traditional grinder just takes a long time. Like, I haven't even made a dent here. That's maybe 1/8 of what I need. So I got the Man Kitchen pepper cannon after Christmas. Let me show you the difference this makes at getting the volume of pepper we need quickly. So in elapsed time, that was just maybe about 30 seconds, and you can see we've got a full container of fresh cracked black pepper. And I wish there was such thing as smell-o-vision, because if we were just to take a whiff of what sort of peppercorn oils we're getting in the pre-ground stuff, I mean, you can tell it's pepper, and this is maybe great for a soup or adding to your eggs, but in comparison, knock your socks off. That's where you're reminded that pepper is actually a spice. And like I mentioned, I started small, and I actually took the time to grind that out a few times, and I was absolutely sold on the difference. But when I saw the pepper cannon can do that about 10 times quicker, I had to try it, and it is totally worth it for rubs like this. So this is definitely going to be something you'll see more of as we go forward, because the flavor impact here is significant. So let's get back to making up the rest of our rub. So since I'm actually cooking a couple other things, I'm going to, as I mentioned, double the rub. So instead of 2 tablespoons, I'm going to go for 4 of our fresh cracked black pepper here. Then we're going to want 2 tablespoons of our Diamond Crystal Kosher salt. And now, since we're adding the ratio, instead of being 50-50, we're going to add a little bit extra of our Diamond Crystal Kosher salt using a teaspoon. So since I'm doubling the recipe, it's going to be 2 teaspoons of Diamond Crystal Kosher salt. Next, we're going to go 4 teaspoons of our Lowry's and 1 tablespoon of garlic. Mix that up well, and our salt and pepper rub is ready to go. So the overnight dry brine, if you've not had a chance to try this, is maybe one of the single biggest difference makers in your cooking, because It'll do a few things. One, it'll give the salt time to penetrate the meat more deeply, and on a large steak to a brisket or a pulled pork, this is definitely something that you will notice a dry brine product versus a non-dry brine product is that extra flavor of the meat really standing out and accentuate it. The other thing that it does is it helps retain more moisture. And so while initially in that first hour or so, salt is pulling out moisture, overnight dry brine, it starts to pull that back in, and the net weight of a dry brine cook versus a non-dry brine cook, it retains more moisture. I've tested this a couple times on a few different things and found that it absolutely holds true in terms of retaining more moisture. More moisture is a more juicy, tender product when it's all said and done. So that is absolutely what we're starting with. In terms of our game plan for our cook time, we're taking a bit of a guess here in terms of what's the cook time on my offset versus something like the Kamado, which my other cooks this year have all been on. So I'm giving myself a range, right? If I want this brisket to be done for 6 o'clock tonight, and I would like an ideal time of about a 2-hour rest in our foil towel in a cooler, I'm budgeting sort of that 9-ish hour range to figure out that I need to start this cook, have it on the grill around 7 a.m. this morning, which is exactly what we did. I'll put a quick chapter now. You can jump to the dry brine rub, and I'll rejoin you in a minute when I walk through the process of building our fire and getting our brisket on for today's smoke session. So for building our fire, I've been getting great results by adding just a little bit of charcoal into the bottom. This is a semi-insulated firebox, so that's got some great residual heat retention properties, but still allows a clean burning fire. As soon as we throw a split on, a second or two later it combusts and we are seeing nice open flames. But this coal bed will last all day, so just to help get it started, I throw on a little bit of charcoal. And I also use, at the beginning when I'm lighting it up, some kiln dried splits. So I just break those down into smaller kindling and use my grill blazer grill gun to get that in a raging inferno nice and quick. So this is going to help establish a coal bed that I'll be able to maintain all day for whatever it is we're cooking. And it'll also help heat soak our entire grill. Starting off this morning, it was quite chilly. It's a little bit nicer now. We're just in the low 50-degree Fahrenheit range, but it was really, really chilly this morning. And so I want to take advantage of having a 1/4-inch steel cook chamber and get that nice and heat soaked. So starting with a nice hot fire, let that die down over about 40 minutes or so into a great coal bed is now something we'll be able to maintain all day. For smoking wood, I'm going with maple hardwood for our smoke today, and as you can see, they're about 10 inches in size and maybe wrist thickness in diameter. And so I'm using the warming shelves on the semi-insulated firebox to be able to load 2 of those, so they're drying out at all times, and then when I want to drop one in, it'll catch right away. In terms of our starting point for our cook, I'm going to place the point end towards the firebox, fill up our water pans so that we're able to, again, keep some humidity in the cook chamber. And the idea here is after about 3 hours, I'm going to flip the brisket the other way just so that it's nice and equal in terms of the point and the flat being close to the firebox, as well as the collector chamber here. Since this is my first brisket, maybe we won't need to do this in the future, but I've had many people suggest that as a recommendation. So I want to give it a try and see if this rotation after about 3 hours is absolutely necessary. Then, as our cook progresses and I start to reach the target temperature that I set on my meter probe for 160 degrees Fahrenheit, that's when I want to move to a foil boat. And so the foil boat's going to do a couple things for us. It's going to help collect some of that rendering out fat that I'll be able to pour on top later. It's also going to act like a bit of a sweater, which is going to help accelerate our cook time. I know on my Kamado style grills, in a foil boat, I can gain about 10 degrees Fahrenheit per hour. So this is also going to help me manage our total cook time, as well as preventing any overdoneness on the bottom, which I'm not concerned about in an offset because the heat is not coming up from the bottom. So it's really just accelerating our cook time, as well as leaving the top bark exposed to that smoke and shortening our total wait between when we get delicious brisket. Okay, the meter sent an alert to my phone. Let's check for probe feel, see how we're doing. Oh, that's good. like butter right there, goes right through. Flat feels really good. So it's reading 197 to 199, but it's light butter. So I'm gonna get this off, let it rest. So before the wind blows away my foil here, I've let the brisket rest on the counter for 20 minutes, just until the core temperature started to come down. That way I know we won't overcook it. If we were to wrap this right away, wrap it in a towel and put it in our cooler, that would continue to overshoot our target temperature. So I can remove the meter probe and wrap it up, put it in a towel and put it in our cooler, and I'll see you in about 2 hours for our taste test. Well, the wait is finally over, and I cannot wait to slice into this. So I've removed it from our foil towel cooler rest, drizzled what little bit of tallow was still available in our wrap over the top, and I am ready to dig in. So grab our knife, grab some gloves, I'll bring you nice and close, we'll slice into it. All right, it's go time. Oh, look at that. That is one pretty looking brisket. Let's get a couple slices out of our flat as well as our point. Flip this around so do it right-handed. All right, so it can hold up under its own. Fly away, little birdie. Little pull. Set that aside for our taste test. I'm gonna get some, while I have you nice and close, let's get a couple out of our point end here. This looks amazing, and I already stole a sample, so I know it's good, but let's start with our flat here. Got a piece. Let's pull that apart. Oh, that's good. Wow. First attempt on an offset, I'll take that any day. That was really good. Let's try a piece of our point here. Dig in. Wow is all I can say. That, for a first attempt, is the best first attempt of any brisket I've done on a new smoker. The bark, probably the best I've ever made. Just the caramelization on the top. That's signature offset. That's exactly what we were going for. Yeah, I think the flat I could do a touch better. The taste is there. The tenderness, I'm going to give that an 8.5 out of 10. I think I can get that a little bit better. The point, right on the money, exactly where it should be. Our seasoning, let me try and explain, what's going on there, but we're getting bark, and then you get the warmth, the gush of the fat cap as you just sort of bite into it. It's like meat candy. It's incredible. And then the hero here is beef, and that's exactly what that overnight dry brine does, is it really lets the whatever it is that you've dry brined be the hero, and that's what we're tasting. This is a brisket. It should taste like brisket, and that's exactly what's going on here. And I'm just at a loss for words. I can't wait to share this with family and friends inside and get to some experiments where we could put this head to head on some other grills and see if we could compare what one's doing really well and what we want to work on the other, and vice versa. So this is going to be a fun spring. I can't wait. Let me know what you'd like to see in the comments down below, and while you're there, be sure to check out the member section. I go live once a month with members, and that's where one of these head-to-head ideas came from. So can't wait to see you there. But that's it for today, though. I'm James from Smoke Dad Barbecue signing off. Remember, don't be afraid. Fire it up.